It's been called the entertainment capital of the world, with nighttime spectacles that rival any on Earth. But shows like this are just part of a day in the life of Las Vegas. To keep this desert metropolis running, workers have to climb up into the sky and descend from high above. Some even have to dive. There's no end to what you can discover when you spend 24 hours in the skies over Las Vegas. A mysterious airline that ferries workers to top-secret U.S. military sites. Glimmering facades that are actually billion-dollar investments gone bad. And even a trailer park that's home to one of America's most successful entrepreneurs. Once, visitors flocked here to southern Nevada to witness explosions of atomic bombs. Today, they spend their days partying hard and getting their thrills high in the sky. A few even dare to leap from the tallest tower in the West. It's one of the driest cities in the nation. But in Vegas, water creates one of the most entertaining shows on Earth. And every night, above it all, thousands of nighttime predators come out to feast in a beam of light that's been called the brightest in the world. All this in just one day in the Valley of Las Vegas. Las Vegas is famous for its millions of sparkling lights. It even claims to have the brightest beam of light on Earth. But the most awe-inspiring light in the Las Vegas Valley is this one. When the morning sun makes its appearance over Nevada's Frenchman Mountain, it signals the end of another colorful night in Sin City. But it also kicks off the beginning of one more tough day for those who keep this entertainment capital running 24/7. And this morning, two of them are just starting their shift high up on the glass of one of Las Vegas's most iconic structures, the colossal Black Pyramid of the Luxor Hotel and Casino. Ulysses Cervantes and Miguel Lopez work on the front lines of Las Vegas's battle against desert dust. They start their shift at 6:30 a.m. when the morning light just begins to bathe the larger-than-life-size replica of an Egyptian sphinx that stands at the entrance of the Luxor. To get here, they climb out of an opening just below the pyramid's tip. Then, they have to make sure they are securely harnessed in, so they don't end up skidding more than 400 feet down the surface of the Luxor. There's enough glass on this pyramid to cover more than 8 football fields. And since the Luxor's windows have been installed at 40-degree angles, they are constantly getting coated with Nevada dust. Once Ulysses and Miguel get started, their work creates a river of soap and dirt. So they can't stop until they've reached the ground. Often, the temperature in Las Vegas rises above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Reflective windows like these make it even hotter. It's like working on the surface of a solar cooker, which is why they fill their buckets with ice cubes at the start of every shift. It's a job that never ends. Once Ulysses and Miguel are finished cleaning this side of the pyramid, they'll have to start on the next one, from the top. And after they're done with all 4 sides, they'll have to scrub these windows on the east side all over again. By the time the sun is up, there are workers all across this valley making sure that the dazzling spectacle of Las Vegas will live on for another day. And some of the most important workers in Vegas are lighting technicians. Here at Mandalay Bay, James Smith is already starting his daily descent from the roofline. He needs to replace one of the neon tube lights that make Mandalay Bay one of the most easily recognized casinos on the Strip. It was from a 32nd floor suite in this building on October 1st, 2017, that a gunman opened fire on an outdoor country music festival on the Strip, murdering more than 50 people and injuring hundreds more. It was one of the deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history. James works for one of the oldest lighting companies in Vegas, called Yesco. For more than 7 decades, it's been creating the most familiar casino marquees on the Strip. Some of the oldest ones, which are no longer in use, have been preserved here at the Las Vegas Neon Museum. Up on Mandalay Bay, it takes just a few minutes to swap out this old 2-foot-long bulb for a new one. Every day, there are hundreds of blown bulbs across this city that need to be replaced by nightfall. If you peer up at just about any casino or hotel on the Strip in the morning, chances are you'll catch sight of the engineers and others who risk their lives to keep Las Vegas running 24/7. By 7:30 a.m., up in the tower at McCarran International Airport, air traffic controllers are busy too. They're landing another passenger jet on runway 1 right. It's one of the nearly 1,500 commercial flights that land or take off from McCarran every day. They carry more than 47 million passengers in and out of Las Vegas each year through its 2 main terminals. But on the west side of McCarran, there's a very different kind of airline, and it doesn't sell tickets to the public. It uses top-secret military planes and has its own special ramp and terminal. By 8 a.m. every weekday morning, groups of workers start filing aboard a fleet of repurposed 737s. They are owned by the U.S. Department of Defense, but are operated by a private military contractor called ACOM. The people who fly on them are forbidden from talking about their flights and revealing where they go. The terminal building they use is unmarked and is known only by its nickname, Gold Coast. These planes don't have any airline branding. The only way to recognize them is by their red stripes. People often refer to these aircraft as Janet, because that's the name the pilots of these jets use as their call sign when they communicate with civilian air traffic control. They play a key role for the U.S. military. Normal commercial airlines aren't allowed to fly into top-secret military sites, so the Department of Defense uses these red-striped jets to move its workers between civilian airports like McCarran and restricted military ones, including the airfield that lies northwest of Vegas in the legendary top-secret military site known as Area 51. Every morning at McCarran, these mysterious planes taxi out and lift off right next to the Strip. And once they've disappeared into the clouds, the pilots on board often change their flight paths and call signs, so it's hard to track them and to know for sure where they go and why. But this morning, top-secret military contractors aren't the only ones racing through the skies over the Las Vegas Valley. 8 miles south of the Strip, the runway at the much smaller Henderson Airport is quiet. But it won't be for long. 2 of the world's premier stunt planes, called Extra 330s, are getting ready to take off. For about $500, a tourist from South Carolina is being buckled in for what could be the most thrilling or terrifying ride of her life. She's heading up with pilots from Sky Combat Ace to do tail slides, hammerheads, spins, and tumbles in the skies over southern Nevada. There's no end to the number of different ways that visitors to Las Vegas can get their thrills. But this has to be one of the most extreme. As soon as she's airborne, it's obvious that this is not going to be a standard airplane ride. Extra 330s were designed for extreme acrobatics. They're built in Germany and can reach 253 miles per hour. And they can pull up to 10 Gs when they climb and turn. Once these pilots reach the skies over Lake Mead on the Nevada-Arizona border, it's game on. With stunts like these, Sky Combat Ace passengers have been known to pass out, vomit, and even beg to be put back on the ground. But for those who can handle it, this part of Nevada offers one more thrill: the chance to race through the canyons of the Colorado River. It takes total concentration to fly an acrobatic plane through a landscape like this one. Just 1 second of distraction could send a pilot and his paying passenger slamming into a canyon wall. A miscalculated turn could cause a plane's wing to clip the rocks, or turn this thrill ride into a deadly plunge. Stunt flying is one way that people in Las Vegas get their thrills, but the ultimate adrenaline rush for others is a more than 800-foot plunge to the desert floor. Whenever the sun's out in Las Vegas, people hit the skies. It's 12:30 p.m. and two zipliners are racing more than 400 feet through the air right over the streets below. They're soaring between two rooftops at the Rio Casino. Today, the Rio is one of more than 100 casinos in the Las Vegas Valley. And the biggest and most extravagant ones lie along the Strip. But gambling hasn't always been legal in Las Vegas. In 1909, just a few years after the city was founded, the Nevada legislature voted to ban gambling in the state. That ban lasted over 2 decades. When gambling in Nevada became legal again in 1931, new casinos started popping up along a desolate stretch of Highway 91, just south of downtown. That highway is now South Las Vegas Boulevard, better known as the Strip. One of the oldest casinos here is the Flamingo. It was launched in 1946 by legendary mob boss Bugsy Siegel, who was mysteriously gunned down half a year later, some say for embezzling the mob's cash. Today, the Flamingo is small compared to the multi-billion-dollar complexes that surround it. These days, big corporate investors, not the mob, run this city. These glass-covered towers, known as City Center, were completed in 2009 and came with a price tag of more than $9 billion. When most people think of Las Vegas today, they think of the Strip. But the Strip doesn't actually lie inside the city of Las Vegas. It belongs instead to an unincorporated Nevada town called Paradise. City officials in Las Vegas once tried to annex Paradise, to increase their city's tax base, but never succeeded. Paradise is just one of the many different towns and cities that lie inside the Valley of Las Vegas. The biggest are Las Vegas itself, North Las Vegas, and to the south, the city of Henderson. The unincorporated Nevada town of Paradise lies right in the middle and even includes the runways of McCarran International Airport. But even though most of the hotels and casinos on the Strip actually lie in Paradise, they all use Las Vegas mailing addresses because there's nothing like the lure of the words Las Vegas. Once, those words were synonymous with clubs, vice, and gambling. But today, people come to Vegas for all kinds of reasons. It's just after 1 p.m. at the High Roller. When it was completed in 2014, this was the highest Ferris wheel in the world. Each of its transparent pods can hold up to 40 people. But today, inside this pod, 5 yogis have gathered for a yoga class in the sky. They often use the High Roller to practice together while spinning over the Strip. Since each class is an hour and each rotation of the High Roller takes 30 minutes, they'll get 2 chances to look out over Vegas from the wheel's highest point at 550 feet. It's the perfect spot to get a little spiritual lift from the sight of the rugged Nevada peaks that lie west of the valley. But for a much more thrilling aerial adventure in Las Vegas, many come here for a daring dive from the top of the Stratosphere. This towering Las Vegas icon opened in 1996. It was originally supposed to be 1,800 feet high, but that could have made it dangerous for planes arriving and departing McCarran International Airport, so the tower's height had to be reduced by almost a third. Today, at 1,149 feet, it's still the tallest tower west of the Mississippi. Like just about every other casino property in Clark County, Nevada, the Stratosphere has ridden a roller coaster of great booms and busts. Soon after it opened, the owners of this casino and tower filed for bankruptcy. And 2 years later, the legendary investor Carl Icahn won control of the property in bankruptcy court for a fraction of the $550 million that the Stratosphere cost to build. New rides were added to the top, and after the launch of its Sky Jump, this tower went on to become one of Vegas's most death-defying draws. 10 years after they bought it, Icahn and his investors sold the tower, hotel, and casino as part of a deal they claim earned them $1 billion in profit. It changed hands yet again in 2017. New owners of the Stratosphere may come and go, but one thing on this soaring structure has remained the same: the thrill of a 30-second free fall from the top. Everyone who does it starts their jump here, 829 feet above the streets of Vegas. After paying more than $100, they step out onto a ledge, get buckled in, and then leap into the sky. Las Vegas's zip lines, towers, and rides may lure visiting adrenaline junkies, but many locals get their thrills by heading out into the rugged mountains that surround Las Vegas. And there's no place that inspires greater awe in this part of Nevada than this, a site known as Red Rock. Just 17 miles west of the Strip lies one of the most stunning stretches of protected wilderness in America. It's a long, narrow piece of land that covers almost 200,000 acres. It's known as the Red Rock Canyon National Conservation Area. At its heart is the colossal pile of stone for which Red Rock was named. It's a mecca for technical climbers. Every morning, before the desert sun starts to bake the rock face, dozens come here to try and summit these knobbly sandstone giants. Once you get up close, they're much bigger than they first look from the air. Hundreds of millions of years ago, this area and the entire Las Vegas Valley lay under an inland sea. Over time, the bones of sea creatures created layers of limestone rock on the sea floor. When the waters of that sea finally drained away, tectonic plates in the Earth's crust pushed up the land into these towering forms. Wind, rain, and erosion also exposed iron oxides in layers of sandstone that eventually turned red with rust. Today, the brilliant colors and dazzling array of forms of red rock are a big part of what lures 2 million people here every year. They also create a visually stunning backdrop to the climbers as they work their way to the top. Today, 4 friends are heading up one of the west walls. Dan, Christian, John, and Justin all live in the Las Vegas Valley and often climb here together. But what brings them to Red Rock isn't just their love of the great outdoors. This is also what they do for their day jobs. Dangle from ropes and work together as a tight team. These 4 friends and co-workers spend most of their days on the glimmering facades of Sin City's casinos, earning a living by doing what they love. Sometimes anything can seem possible in a day in Las Vegas. But the more than 2 million people who call this desert valley home wouldn't be able to survive without the engineering wonders that make life here possible. When the clock strikes 1 p.m. in southern Nevada, the sun is usually burning down at full force. Today is no exception. High above the Las Vegas Valley, the snow cap here in the Spring Mountains has already started to melt. The tallest peak in this range is Mount Charleston. It rises nearly 12,000 feet above sea level. Every tale about a day in the life of Las Vegas ultimately begins here. Without these peaks and the snow that covers them, the Las Vegas that we know today might not even exist. Over time, melting snow from Mount Charleston and the surrounding mountains made its way into aquifers under the valley floor. It was this runoff that helped make it possible for Native American tribes, including the Mojave and Paiute, to inhabit the valley as early as 13,000 years ago. When early Spanish-speaking traders passed through here in the 1820s on their way to California from Santa Fe, they discovered a green oasis with natural springs, streams, and fields. It was one of these traders who first gave the valley its name, Las Vegas, which is Spanish for the meadows. But the arrival of the railway in Nevada in the early 20th century changed life here forever. As more and more people poured off the trains, the population of Las Vegas grew. And so too did this new western city's thirst for water. It wasn't long before the water started to run out, and the meadows that inspired Las Vegas's name began turning into desert. When you fly across the Las Vegas Valley today, it can be hard to believe there's a shortage of water. Up and down the Strip, there's water everywhere, in lavish fountains and swimming pools. In fact, this is why many people now come to Vegas to go day clubbing at places like this, MGM Grand's Wet Republic. And for many who live in the valley, entire days can be spent without ever feeling like you're in a desert at all. Especially for those who live here, between these giant artificial lakes in a development known as Desert Shores. But the reason Las Vegas is able to be so lush and green today is because of what happened here in the 1930s, when thousands of workers from across America flocked to southern Nevada to build this. The Hoover Dam. It lies just 25 miles east of the Strip. If you were to peer down on this stretch of the Colorado River in the 1930s, you would have seen an army of workers below. They drilled holes for more than 8 million pounds of dynamite, carved 8 miles of tunnels through the canyon's walls, and poured more concrete than had ever been poured on a single construction project anywhere in the world. Close to 100 men died building the Hoover Dam, but it's still considered one of America's greatest engineering achievements. The mission of the dam was to generate hydroelectric power, control flooding in the Colorado River, and to provide water for irrigation. Once it was completed, the valley started filling up with the water that is now known as Lake Mead. Today, it's a popular recreation area for residents of Las Vegas, a welcome, watery oasis in a desert land. But this lake is also what enables Las Vegas to survive. In the 1950s, pipelines started carrying water from Lake Mead into the Las Vegas Valley. And with a plentiful and new source of water, the valley's population could continue to grow. Today, there are 2 million residents in Clark County, 7 times the number that lived here in 1970. And 90% of the water they use comes from Lake Mead. After water gets sucked out of the lake, it's disinfected here before being pumped into the valley. Some of it ends up at the Anthem Country Club in Henderson. It's what allows members to spend an entire day on the golf course, surrounded by babbling brooks, waterfalls, and trees, almost as if they're not in the southern Nevada desert at all. But much of the water that's consumed inside homes and businesses in Las Vegas gets directed back to water treatment plants and is then used again. This stream is actually wastewater from across the valley. It's making its journey back to Lake Mead. As it does, millions of gallons of water are being pumped back out of the lake 24/7 to keep Las Vegas alive for another day. The biggest and best-known display of water in all of Las Vegas lies right on the Strip. It's a vast 8-acre lake known as the Fountains of Bellagio. It's part of the Bellagio Hotel and Casino that is reported to have cost $1.6 billion to build. Spend 24 hours in Vegas, and it's impossible not to catch sight of the choreographed dances of water that are performed here every night. They are the most elaborate fountains in America. And just like other top Las Vegas entertainers, the Fountains of Bellagio have to practice their routines every day to stay in perfect shape. They are managed by one of the most unique teams of stagehands in the world. Every morning, they appear on a motorized barge from a grotto they call the Batcave in the northern wall of the fountain. The Motors, pumps, and valves that make this fountain dance all lie underwater. And it takes skilled engineers who are also certified divers to keep them working flawlessly. First, they turn on the 5,000 jets that create the fountain's fog so they can check to make sure none of them are clogged. Once the fog is in the air, they can't control where it goes, so they have to be careful not to release too much. One time, it nearly shut down traffic on nearby South Las Vegas Boulevard. The team has to dive to get inside the fountain's center ring so they can test each one of the water jets. They pull tanks of air behind them as they work their way across the lake's labyrinth of underwater structures. Once they reach the center, their first job every day is to test the shooters. They have to do it manually, one by one. Shooters are jets that use compressed air to send water straight up into the sky. There are more than 1,200 jets in this fountain alone, including 192 super shooters that can reach 240 feet. But the most impressive are the fountain's 16 extreme shooters. These powerful jets can send water 460 feet into the skies of Las Vegas. With the shooters all working perfectly, it's time to run the fountain's dance troupe through its paces. The lead dancers are 200 robotic nozzles, known as oarsmen. Every day, these high-tech jets have to practice their upcoming routines in small groups. When engineers started designing the fountains of Bellagio, they set out to create a spectacle of water unlike any other on Earth. To do it, they invented the oarsmen. Unlike shooters, these nozzles don't rely on compressed air. They suck water right up from the lake and then send it directly into the sky. The oarsmen can rotate 360 degrees and are synchronized, which is what enables them to look like they're waving, spinning, and playfully dancing to music. This lake was built on top of a former golf course that belonged to a now long-gone casino called the Dunes. That golf course used well water to keep its fairways green. When the Dunes was demolished to build the Bellagio in the 1990s, the designers of the fountains decided to reuse the existing well on the property to supply the 22 million gallons of water that are needed to fill this artificial lake. Making your living scuba diving in the middle of the Strip is one of the most unique jobs in all of Las Vegas. After these engineers make their exit, computers, software, and controllers inside the casino run the show. Tonight, after dark, the fountains of Bellagio will take center stage in Las Vegas once again. Unlike most entertainment here, this is a show that you don't have to pay to see. Modern engineering has managed to make Las Vegas greener and more populated than ever before. But there's one big piece of original Nevada desert still left here. 15 miles northeast of the Las Vegas Strip, out beyond the runways of Nellis Air Force Base, lies an enormous stretch of sand that's known as the Nellis Dunes. It's also a very popular recreation area for off-road vehicles. By 3 p.m., riders start gathering, ready to head out and race on the sand. These dunes were created from sediments deposited by rivers that are no longer here. After the rivers dried up, wind and rain started moving the sediment, creating these sand dunes. Every thrill in Las Vegas comes with its own set of risks, and riding on the Nellis Dunes is no different. Scientists from the University of Nevada recently reported that the Earth here carries the highest levels of naturally occurring arsenic ever recorded on Earth. When the wind blows, or ATVs kick up the sand, it can send clouds of toxic arsenic-laden dust into the air. Riders need to be careful. But people in Las Vegas are used to thinking about the delicate balance of risk and reward. That's because they've had a front row seat to some of the biggest booms and busts in America. When the sun's out, the winners and losers on the Strip are out there for all to see. This vast project of concrete and steel is one of them. It was originally named the Echelon and was supposed to be the fourth largest casino in Las Vegas. But it's been standing here, unfinished, for almost a decade. And the Echelon is small compared to a nearby complex originally called the Fontainebleau. This shimmering tower was designed with a 100,000 square foot casino floor and thousands of hotel rooms and condos above. Even though most of the windows were installed, the interior is still just a concrete shell. After spending more than $2 billion building it, the developer filed for bankruptcy in 2009. To finish it, any new owners will have to invest even more. Daylight in Las Vegas makes it hard to hide the carcasses of billion-dollar investments gone bad. But it also reveals the tremendous wealth of those who do manage to make it big on the Strip. And the biggest winners aren't gamblers, they are casino owners. There's no one more successful in the history of Sin City based on his personal wealth than billionaire casino magnate Sheldon Adelson. The company he founded, Las Vegas Sands, owns the legendary Venetian and more casinos abroad in Macau and Singapore. In 2017, he was reported to be worth more than $35 billion. To jet its executives around the world, Las Vegas Sands has its own fleet of 747s parked at McCarran International Airport. Recently, Adelson bought a large parcel of land here in the suburb of Summerlin and then built this 44,000 square foot house. It has an elaborate swimming pool on the north side with its own sandy beach. But casino owners aren't the only ones who build big in Vegas. Top entertainers do too. Singer Wayne Newton is one of them. He's performed so many times on the Strip, he's known as Mr. Las Vegas. And he used his fame and fortune to develop this 52-acre ranch, which he named Casa de Shenandoah. Newton no longer lives here, but his Arabian horses still graze in its fields. Casa de Shenandoah now offers tours to the public and functions as a museum. But across town, the estate of two of Las Vegas's best-known entertainers is almost never open to outsiders. In 1981, German magicians Siegfried and Roy began performing at the New Frontier Casino, which was demolished in 2007. Their show was a hit and kicked off a 13-year run here at the Mirage. It earned Siegfried and Roy the nickname Masters of the Impossible. It also earned them millions, which they used to build two vast estates west of downtown. This is one of them. They call it Little Bavaria and permit very few people to enter. But they did allow the white lions they used in their acts to roam free here. And they often swam with their big cats in Little Bavaria's pools and fountains. On either side of a shared central house are two separate homes, one for Siegfried and one for Roy. In the middle is their own private chapel. These days, the only creatures in Little Bavaria are swans that glide across its pools and alpacas that graze in its fields. In 2003, during a performance at the Mirage, Roy was badly injured on stage by one of their big cats, a white tiger named Manticore. Roy has always claimed that the tiger was trying to help him, not hurt him, after a fall. In 2014, they announced that Manticore had died from an illness. From the air, it's easy to see that many who make their fortunes in Las Vegas live large, but not all. One of the Valley's most successful entrepreneurs prefers to live downtown in this trailer park. It's 12 p.m., and Tony Hsieh, the CEO of online shoe giant Zappos, is throwing what he calls a fun day brunch. After Amazon bought Zappos for more than $1 billion in 2009, Hsieh decided to move out of his luxury condo and into this Airstream trailer park, which he developed for himself and other young professionals. He's famous for encouraging Zappos employees to celebrate their individuality, and he leads by example. Today, Hsieh's mohawk haircut and striped pants make him easy to spot from the air. One of the park's residents is an alpaca named Marley. He's Zappos' unofficial mascot and inspired the trailer park's nickname, Llama-lopolis. Hsieh has managed to turn these once desolate streets into a thriving community. On a lot nearby, he's installed a giant sculpture called Big Rig Jig by artist Mike Ross. Made from the cabs of real tanker trucks, it was a highlight of the Nevada Desert Festival, Burning Man. A painted mural captures the new spirit of this part of downtown Las Vegas. From his Airstream trailer, Hsieh can bicycle to work at Zappos headquarters. He moved the company here in 2013, when downtown Las Vegas was just starting to emerge from an economic slump. After buying 60 acres of land, he also launched what he calls the Downtown Project, using $350 million from his own pocket. At its heart is a shopping and entertainment complex built entirely from used shipping containers. Standing at its gates is a domed 4K theater and a giant praying mantis crafted from steel. They're helping draw people away from the Strip, back to the city's historic core, especially after dark. But one of downtown Las Vegas's most legendary spots has been here for decades. It's a bar called Atomic Liquors. It happens to be the oldest freestanding bar in Las Vegas, with tavern license number 00001. Many locals in the Valley don't go to the casinos to have fun. They come to neighborhood spots like this one instead. And throughout the years, a wide range of celebrities have too. Barbra Streisand, Clint Eastwood, Martin Scorsese, and many other famous names have stopped in at this local watering hole. It didn't get its unusual name, the Atomic, by chance. Starting in 1951, 65 miles northwest of the Las Vegas Valley, the U.S. Department of Defense tested atomic bombs in a place that came to be known as the Nevada Test Site. Every few weeks for more than a decade, colossal explosions rocked this stretch of Nevada desert, which is one reason this land is still heavily pockmarked today. Local officials in Las Vegas saw the tests as potential tourist attractions and even created a list of the best places for visitors to go to watch the detonations. Leading up to the tests, crowds gathered to drink and party on casino rooftops across Vegas, just like they still do today. But back then, just before dawn, all eyes turned toward the mushroom clouds that rose in the distance over the Nevada desert. That's how Las Vegas got its nickname, Atomic City. These days, atomic bombs are no longer being tested in Nevada, And Las Vegas has a new nickname, Solar City, thanks to this otherworldly sight just a few miles away. It's 3 p.m. in the skies of southern Nevada, 22 miles southeast of the Las Vegas Strip. Down below, it looks like giant semiconductors have been welded onto the desert floor. But up close, it's possible to see that part of this high-tech facility is made up of thousands of photovoltaic panels, all perfectly positioned to receive the most direct sunlight possible. These arrays are called Boulder Solar 1 and 2. When they recently came online, they were the largest solar generating station supplying Nevada. Today, Boulder Solar 1 is one of the primary suppliers of power to the city of Las Vegas, and has allowed officials to proudly claim that the city government is now running entirely on renewable energy. It's part of a group of massive solar facilities here outside Boulder City, not far from the Hoover Dam. But all the electricity generated here still isn't enough to power the entire Las Vegas Valley. These days, some casino owners are installing vast arrays of their own. MGM is one of them. Solar panels now cover the roof of its conference center at Mandalay Bay. But for now, the lights of Las Vegas still gobble up more energy than rooftop solar here produces. And when night falls on the Strip, it's easy to see why. As soon as the sun starts its exit, Las Vegas transforms into a sea of color and light. There's no better place to witness it all than from above. All along the Las Vegas Strip, lighting displays are used to lure, advertise, and simply dazzle just about everywhere you look. Without its own unique and elaborate lights, a casino simply wouldn't survive on the Las Vegas Strip. But there's one beam of light here that's more powerful than all the others. It's just after 8 p.m. and the sky beam at the tip of the Luxor has just been switched on. It may look like a single ray of light, but this beam is actually made up of 39 7,000-watt bulbs. Its light is so powerful, the FAA has designated it an official navigation beacon. When pilots lift off from Los Angeles more than 200 miles away, they can often spot the Luxor's sky beam after they reach cruising altitude. With all this energy, it's been reported that the air just above the pyramid's tip can reach up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Humans may stare at it in awe from a distance, but on still nights like this one, the heat of the sky beam also draws thousands of insects out of the darkness. They turn this shaft of light into the perfect feeding ground for bats. Look closely into the sky beam's bright pool of light, and you can see thousands of these winged nocturnal predators swarming in the night sky. They create a feeding frenzy that reaches up in a column above the tip of the pyramid. These bats spend their days under the eaves of houses across the Las Vegas Valley, and even in caves as far away as Red Rock. But when conditions are right, they appear by the hundreds out of the night sky to feast here above the Las Vegas Strip. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet for bats that's open all night long. It's also one more reason that the glass of the Luxor below will need to be squeegeed again come dawn. When you spend a day in the skies over Las Vegas, the surprises never end. Whether you're racing across the dunes on its desert floor, gliding over the snow-capped peaks that tower high above it, or peering directly down on the engineered wonders that line its strip. It takes daring work to keep this entertainment capital running 24/7. But there's simply no other place in America that compares to Las Vegas.